Yo guys, what is up? Moxie here with another video, and today we're talking about HIGHGUARD. Now, the devs over at Wildlight Entertainment reached out and said, hey, do you want to come play HIGHGUARD early? And obviously I said yes, because I was kind of intrigued by the Gamescom trailer. Really had no idea what kind of game this actually was. It looked like it had certain elements of different games. I didn't know if it was going to be more like Apex Legends, a little bit more like a MOBA, if it was going to be Valorant, if it was a BR. Really just had no idea. And so I agreed, and they flew me out. They paid for my trip, my stay, and they also are sponsoring this video. And in this video, we are going to be diving in and letting you know what HIGHGUARD is about, what the game is, and everything I learned from my trip. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Once again, thanks to Wildlight for sponsoring the video. Let's do this. So when we first arrived to the event in California, the devs sat us down and did a little presentation, and it's there where we learned what the inspiration for HIGHGUARD was. They said they sat and played a ton of different genres of games, extraction shooters, BRs, survivals, basically everything under the sun, and tried to figure out if there was an aspect of a game that they really kind of enjoyed, they could make into a unique and competitive shooter. And they actually settled on the raiding aspect that you can find in games like Rust and Ark Survival Evolved, where you've got this kind of preparation phase where you're gearing up, getting ready, and then riding out into the distance with your buddies to go raid a base. And then you've got to destroy and break down their walls, get into their base, and get their loot. And so that is kind of the experience that they're trying to encapsulate and put into a match-made competitive setting. And that's why they're calling it a raid shooter. How a match of HIGHGUARD actually boils down is into multiple phases. So the first phase is kind of this preparation phase. You're going to pick your warden, which we'll talk about later. Wardens have different abilities, and then you kind of pick your base. There's a bunch of different bases. There's only a few different maps, but on those different maps, you get to pick what base you want to defend. The different bases have different structural layouts. So some of them have you can defend from up high. Some of them are much more short, but wider, and you kind of defend on 2 floors. They have their kind of pros and cons, and it's kind of up to you to, over your time of playing, to figure out which layouts you feel more comfortable defending. So once you pick your base, then you have a fortification phase. In the fortification phase, you can put up kind of reinforcements, kind of similar to Rainbow Six, where you put up these reinforcements and you try to protect and try to predict how the enemies are going to try to infiltrate your base. Now, on your base, there's 3 objectives. There's 2 generators, which are labeled A and B, and then also kind of your home base crystal. If the opponents destroy one of your generators, they do 35 damage, and if they destroy your home crystal, they do 70 damage. By initiating a raid, they do 30 damage. So how it works out is the enemy needs to destroy 2 generators and infiltrate your base, or infiltrate your base and destroy your home crystal, with the home generator, the biggest one, having a 60-second countdown, and the 2 smaller objectives having I think it was 30 to 35-second countdown. So you can kind of play it by feel. If you feel like you're really owning your opponents and you've got a huge advantage on them, you can just kind of go for the end and just beat them with one objective. Or if you're having a really competitive back and forth map, you might not want to risk it and get no progress on going for the big generator and go for one of these small generators, simply because if the defenders defend against you, they actually can do damage to your base. So even though you can be attacking someone else's base, if you get thwarted in your attack, the enemies do damage to your base. So that's kind of the objectives that are in the bases. And so once you're fortified up in your base, then the match starts, and then that starts phase 2, which is the gear up phase. Now, in the gear up phase, you're going to be jumping onto your mount. There's multiple different mounts. They all have, the same amount of HP, movement speed. They're strictly cosmetic. And while you're riding out into the world, there's a bunch of things that you want to go collect. So the first is there's different chests around. Chests will collect raid tools and different weapons. Now, HIGHGUARD is launching with 10 different weapons. There's ARs, snipers, hand cannons, auto shotguns, pump shotguns, pretty solid variety of weapons to pick from, and you can find them in different rarities. The different rarities of weapons will have like different attachments, so they might have faster reload speed, more stability, bigger mag size, and the higher the rarity, the more attachments they'll have. So on your first phase, you're looting up blues, but if the game progresses into the later tiers, you'll find purples and legendaries. Now, you can also find amulets, which can provide you passives, such as like getting your ultimate ability faster. You can find ammo for your raid tools, which will allow you to break down fortifications and infiltrate other bases. You can find things like saddles, which will increase the HP of your mount. Enemies can shoot your mount, and if you die, or if your mount dies while you're on it, you get kind of stunned and have your armor broken, so it makes you pretty vulnerable. So getting extra mount mount HP is really nice. And then the last thing to check out is there's these crystals. Vesper, you can break it with your axe or with like a raid tool, and when you get these crystals, they provide you with a resource that you can use to buy upgrades and stuff at the vendor. So for example, if you really want to use a sniper rifle and you don't find the sniper rifle out in the world, you can also just go and hit the crystals and try to get a sniper rifle that way and just buy it directly from a vendor. So there's kind of two avenues of gearing up. And then once you're geared up, and I believe it's a 2-minute phase ends, then it begins the shield breaker phase. Now, the shield breaker is a big glowing sword that will spawn in like one of 3 points on each map. They're usually in the middle. There's a big cloud floating above where the shield breaker will typically spawn. And once the shield breaker spawns, that's when engagements really start to happen. There's not a huge incentive to start fighting the other team during the gear up phase because you can't really prevent them from getting gear. Usually feels like both your teams get like equally geared. So you're kind of just trying to pick what loadout you want to start your first engagements with. We did do a few rounds where we like just kind of bum rushed the enemy, but it didn't really seem to make much of a difference versus just like, getting a ton of gear yourself. So once the shield breaker spawns, then it becomes kind of a game of reverse capture the flag. You want to go and secure the shield breaker. You can pick up the sword. You don't have to hold it. You can still shoot and move as fast as you want with it on. It doesn't really hinder your ability to play the game. And once you grab the shield breaker, then your goal is to bring it to the enemy's base. However, the enemies are going to be fighting you for it. You have a big blue dome that gives the enemies a general idea of where you are, which makes it kind of harder to like backdoor with the shield breaker. But you're basically riding out. You'll probably fight over the flag if you get it, the shield breaker. Then you're going to be fighting out in the open, and you got to kill the enemies probably a few more times, typically once or twice more, before you're able to kind of plant it into their dome, which begins the raid phase, which is phase 3. Now, in phase 3 is where I think the game really shines, and that is the raid phase. So the attackers will begin barging into the other team's base, and that's where you can use your raid tools, your abilities, really start causing some mayhem and destruction. You can go for some of the easy objectives like A and B, or go, try to backdoor, go around and really break in and try to go for the big crystal. The choice is up to you. We had kind of success doing both, but this is where the game becomes a lot more close quarters, frantic team fighting. I was playing in a group of 3 really talented gamers. So we were having some great comms and having some great games. But when you're in the enemy raid base, the way that it works is you've got a timer to complete your objectives. So your raid is only a certain amount of time. So if you don't get your objectives done in a certain amount of time, you'll get kicked out. And you also only have a certain amount of lives. So you as an attacker have 6 lives, and the defenders have infinite lives. So the defenders can kill you and your team 6 times. They can stop the raid. However, during those 6 lives, you have, kind of free roam to just go into their base and try to cause as much destruction as possible. So you're going to be planning a detonator on it. The enemies will then try to, stop your detonation from happening, and you're usually having some solid team fights in between, trying to secure these objectives. The spawns are decently long, so I found, for example, if 2 of your teammates get picked off, there's 3 up. Usually it's not worth pushing in. You kind of need to wait for your wait for your teammates to respawn. That was a big thing about this game. The TTK is actually pretty slow, in my opinion, and so having teammates to push with you makes a big difference. It's a huge difference if you're in a 2v1 versus a 1v1 and how easy it is or how hard it is to kill someone. But if you destroy the enemy base and get 2 of their generators or the home crystal on your first push, that's it. The game is over. Had a bunch of matches that only lasted like 6 to 7 minutes. That was not intentional. But if the enemies hold off and hold off your offense, then the game kind of resets. You go back to a gearing up phase. You can then repair your base if any damage was done, refortify walls, and then the shield breaker spawns. Then you try to push it into the enemy base, and it has this nice back and forth. When HIGHGUARD has these like long, drawn out games where you're fighting back and forth, where it's intense, where you're sweating it out with your like teammates and you're doing full comms, I think that's when this game is at its best. However, in my like 6 hours of playing at this event, we only had 2 games that really like lasted a full duration. A lot of games were just over really quick, and those games weren't really rewarding or satisfying to win, especially when, you know, the like respawns are so slow that sometimes you're winning a game only seeing the enemy like 3 times. And so I definitely think there's some balance that they need to be done there. Now that you've got an idea of how the game actually plays out, let's talk about the different characters. So there's going to be 8 characters on launch, with more being added later. Each character comes with a passive ability that they just get all the time. That could be like they find more loot, or maybe they get faster reload speed after like killing an enemy. Also, they will all have like a tactical power. Some are used for like breaching and destruction. Some are used for assault. Some are used for defense. And then they also have an ultimate ability that gets charged up. You can find like ultimate accelerants, kind of like how you can in Apex, but you can also get like ultimate energy just by killing and like getting points in the game. And so that's kind of the base of the heroes. So of those 8 characters, the first one to talk about is Redmayne. He's a destruction character, very aggression focused. He gets increased movement speed and reload speed after you kill an enemy. He's got a pounce that can like break down walls and play really aggressive. There was Condor, who's more of a recon character, who had the ability to call in a UAV so that she could kind of like see enemies through walls. Atticus is an assault character. He can throw shock spears and rain down these huge like lightning bolt thunderstorms. Was really good on both offense and defense because you could like place the shock spears on one of the objectives to make it so enemies had a hard time planting it or diffusing. There was Kai, who is defensive. Kai can place these ice walls that can like break through walls. You can use them as defense. You can use them to break through other opponents' walls. Mara was one of my favorites. She can throw out this ability that grants you additional armor, and she gets that power to do the armor by like destroying other enemies' little soul cores. Una is the only one I didn't really play. He was a defensive character that can call on these like forest wisps that you can use, and also you can get extra loot. Scarlet was really cool. Her ability allows her to go invisible and also make walls kind of disappear, so you can kind of slip into enemies' bases undetected. And then lastly, there was Slade, who's kind of this like fire mage, could call down firestorms, throw fire bombs, and also kind of unleash heat waves at enemies. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. HIGHGUARD is out now. It's free to play. It's out on all platforms. And so if you want to go form your own opinions on it, you can do so for totally free. Me personally, I did have some fun playing HIGHGUARD. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Like competitive PvP is just not really my genre. So I don't see myself sinking much time into this. I think it's a pretty decent foundation, though, and I'd love to see them, me personally, if I was to sink a lot of time into this game, if they added some more MOBA elements to it. I think there could be some really cool things if they really build out the characters, maybe add some like minions and some more like in-game currency and economy, and have more impact on the different items and passives and things that you could like build out your character to add a little bit more mechanical depth and also progression into the rounds. Would personally be a little bit more interesting to me. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. I will catch y'all in the next one. Thanks again to Wildlight for sponsoring this video. Take care, guys. Peace.